of us are entrepreneurs, we have our own businesses, we work in companies, we oversee teams, and we're on a team where we just we feel this need to speak up. We're in a conversation, we want to be heard. Sometimes that is what sparks those tough conversations, and things get said that don't need to be said. So what I'm going to invite you to do right now is, yes, having tough conversations. We're going to talk about the tools to articulate well, but we're also going to talk about being a person who can listen well. That is so much a part of having tough conversations. It's not just being a good orator, it's being a good listener. So I wanted to tell you guys about myself. I just dyed my hair blonde, so this picture's a couple months old now. My name is Nandi Camille. I'm a life coach. I specialize in coaching creative women. I really love mindset. When I say life coach, I coach on everything in your life, everything from relationship to business to your team, women who are going through divorce, raising their children, figuring out life, but all from a mindset perspective. What's going on in here? Our thoughts create how we feel, which influence our actions, which create the results we have in the world. That's the philosophy that I like to follow. I currently live here in Denver, Colorado with my fiance, Tyler, and our golden doodle, Fraser. He's named after the 90s sitcom. Here in Colorado, a lot of people are like, is he named after the town of Fraser? No, he's named after the 90s sitcom. I actually had never watched it ever before. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary. He introduced me to the 90s sitcom 5 years ago, and I love it. Some people don't. If you don't, that's okay. But that's a little bit about me, a little bit about your teacher today for having tough conversations. Okay, so in this webinar, in this class, we're going to learn tools and questions to better support emotional intelligence. So we're going to break down what that even means. Begin to understand why we feel the way we do and the difference between guilt and shame. This is really important when it comes to having tough conversations. A lot of times we don't even embark in having tough conversations because there's vulnerability there. We don't want to be vulnerable, right? That's what's going on in our mind. I don't want to be vulnerable. That feels unsafe. There's a lot of guilt and shame that shows up. So we're going to talk about that. How to do a body scan as a mindfulness tool. As a life coach, mindfulness and self-awareness is so important. Right? I want to give you the tools to shape and create the life that you want, but also to have the awareness to change the things that are no longer working. Right? So we're going to talk about what it means to sit with your emotions. And we're also going to talk about how to thoughtfully articulate what you want to say. So a lot of times when I'm working with clients, I'll talk to them like, oh my gosh, you said that so well. How do you say that? I need to write all that down. I'm going to give you the tools to be able to do all of that, to articulate whatever it is that you need to say well, to represent yourself, right? A lot of times we get nervous about being blunt or being rude. I'm going to give you the opportunity in some different ways to articulate, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on for me. What's going on for you? So with that, we're going to learn phrases to help you clarify what's going on. Okay, so let's talk about emotional intelligence. I got this, Googled it. What is emotional intelligence? We're going to talk about understanding your emotions. The capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. I thought that was really, really important and interesting, right? When you think about emotional intelligence, it's understanding your emotions, but it's also handling those relationships empathetically. That's a part of emotional intelligence. It's also the key to both personal and professional success, I think. I always encourage my clients to define success for them. So when we're going through this presentation, I want you to take what speaks to you, leave the rest. If it doesn't speak to you, that's okay. Take what speaks to you, leave the rest. For me, part of my personal and professional success means being emotionally intelligent, means being aware of what's going on in my brain, means being able to slow down and to process what I'm saying, articulating exactly what I mean to say. Being able to slow down so that things that I don't mean come out of my mouth. That is part of being emotionally intelligent. So when we're talking about guilt, shame, and blame, I want to break these down. And I really, really love The Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown. If you can listen to that audiobook, it is so good. And actually, I think it's a presentation that she does. And you can listen to it on Audible. I love it. It's so good. So guilt says, I did something wrong. That's what guilt says. I did something wrong. Now, Guilt is at the top of the totem pole. That's where we're going to say it is. Shame says, I am wrong. I am wrong. So think about, you made a mistake at work, right? You sent an email to the wrong person, you missed a deadline. Instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I did something wrong, I missed the deadline, shame says, I am wrong. I always mess up, I always make those mistakes, dang it. Right, so start to notice that for yourself. I would prefer that you're in a place of guilt rather than shame. Guilt says, I did something wrong, therefore I can do something right, I can correct it. Now, on the other end, when you're sending it out, right? So guilt, shame is the receiving end. I am wrong, I did something wrong. Blaming, shaming is when you're sending it out. You did something wrong. Shaming says you are wrong, right? So we want to watch for this. Especially, I want you to think about those of you who are in leadership roles. When you're talking to your employees and to your team, allowing for their humanness is a part of having tough conversations. Allowing and noticing, right? The golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. But when we get into this place where it's your business, right? It's your baby. And somebody makes a mistake, we can get heated, we can get upset, we can get frustrated. You did something wrong, it's your fault. Notice that, right? And notice that it's coming from a place of protecting, right? It's our ego, it's protecting. Some of you are like, your ego. What? Your ego, egotistical? No, the inner critic in your brain. It's just trying to protect your business, right? So then it comes to, you did something wrong, right? Watch for that. As an employer, as a leader, when we're having those tough conversations, right? Can we articulate, and I'm going to give you phrases for articulating conversations and understanding that a little bit better. Let's move out of you did this wrong. You are wrong. Watch for that. Watch for that language. Is it guilt? Is it shame? Is it blaming? When it comes to us, watch if you're shaming yourself versus guilt. You are not wrong. You made a mistake and it's okay. We're going to keep it moving. So one of the things that I really love to do with my clients is give them journal prompts. These journal prompts I'm giving you to help promote your own emotional intelligence, to help you start to notice what's, going on in your own brain, in your own mind, right? So that when you're going into these conversations, you're aware of what's going on for you. And what happens is when we increase, some of you are like, what is going on? We were going to talk about having tough conversations. You're talking about self-awareness now. In order to be a person who is present during those tough conversations, you have to increase your self-awareness. You have to create this space between hearing the information and reacting. This is where emotional intelligence comes into play. So here's some prompts for you. What are my thoughts about me? What are my thoughts about me? Because if some of your thoughts are, I'm a bad human being, I make mistakes all the time, I don't make good decisions. I had a client once that thought that about themselves. I don't make good decisions. If you have these thoughts about yourself and you're in a conversation and so it says, you make stupid decisions, you make dumb decisions anyway, you're going to believe that immediately because that's a thought that you have about yourself, right? And then that's where shame comes in. I am wrong. I make horrible decisions. So this is why I'm bringing in the self-awareness, the emotional intelligence. What are your thoughts about yourself? Let's get aware of them. Let's be aware of what we think about ourselves. Because sometimes people call out the truth in us. And again, that inner critic, that ego is not ready for it and we jump to it, right? And that's where that tough conversation gets explosive and we want to move away from that. So if you are aware of our own flaws, of our own thoughts about ourselves, right? We can be aware of it when somebody else calls it out. We can choose not to react. What makes me angry? This is a fantastic one. What makes you angry? Do you know what makes you angry? Do you know what your cues are, what your triggers are? I love this question, especially for couples. What are do you know what your triggers are? And have you been able to articulate to your partner, to your friend, to your colleagues, to your team, right? What brings me joy? What does joy feel like in my body? And conversely, I just skipped it. What does anger feel like in my body? Start to get aware of what these emotions feel like in your body. So that way, the next time someone comes up to you, a coworker, a team member, and they say something that rubs you the wrong way, our bodies are very intelligent, my friends. You will feel it in your body. For me, I've talked about this with lots of clients before. I hold my tension right up here in my jawline, in my neck, and my shoulders, right? When I get anxious, I shake sometimes, and I'll notice that in my body first. And when I notice that, ooh, that's a cue for me. I'm getting upset, I'm getting frustrated, right? I can notice that. I can create space to not just react. I'm getting frustrated. And conversely, right, I want you to notice what joy feels like in your body. What does it feel like to be excited? What does it feel like to be happy? Right? Let's expand our emotional intelligence. How do I feel today? Check in with yourself daily. This one is fantastic because there's sometimes, this is great in relationships, especially business relationships, where maybe you don't know, you haven't checked in for the day. How am I feeling today? Right? And you check in the morning, you're like, I'm feeling grumpy today because I didn't do X, Y, and Z, and all my mind is buzzing with all these questions, all these to-dos, right? Feeling frustrated. Then your coworker comes in, your business partner comes in and asks you a question, you snap at them. And they're like, what in the world? And you're like, what in the world? Where did that come from? This is why it's so important to check in with us. If you know what's going on with you, right, we're less likely to react. We can hold the space for those tough conversations. We can be present in those tough conversations. So this is why I encourage you to engage in contemplative practice every day. So I'm going to talk about how to create space for personal awareness using mindfulness. We started to open up that conversation, right? When it comes to having a conversation where you're uncomfortable, where you're frustrated, the very first step I want you to be able to do is create space for yourself so we can stop reacting, right? That's when we find ourselves tripping up, making mistakes, saying things we don't want to say is when we react, right? So let's start to create some space. Breathing. Breathing is a fantastic way to create space. Now, some people are like, what? I'm going to look crazy though, Nandi. I'm going to like be in this conversation and you just want me to stop and be like, absolutely. There are over 760 people registered for this, and I just paused and I just breathed in front of everybody. You can do it too. Take a moment to breathe. Take a moment to just breathe. Again, we're creating space, right? We don't want to build up the tension. We want to start to dissipate it. I was talking to a client the other day, and we go back to elementary school and we think about the different states of matter. You have the solid, the liquid, and the gas, right? When you're feeling tense, when you're feeling frustrated, you're very tense, you're very solid. All your cells are solid, right? What we want to do is that breath is going to loosen you up. You're going to become liquid, right? And this is a space where we can listen, where we can receive, right? So we can get to a gaseous space where we can feel expansive, where we can be open to being misunderstood, where we can be open to being vulnerable, where we can be open to having tough conversations about things that are uncomfortable. Breathing is an excellent practice. Here's some checkpoints for you guys. Checkpoints for mindful conversation. So I want you to be able to use these tools to bring your most present and powerful self to the conversation. So when I'm talking about mindfulness, when I'm talking about being mindful, creating space, here's some different tools for you. Listening deeply. Now, I'm sure you've heard it before. If you're into personal development, you have definitely heard it before, right? I want you to listen instead of listening to respond. Some of you might be hearing that for the first time. Listen to hear them. What is your partner, your business partner, your coworker, your friend trying to say to you? Can you listen for that? And this is why I think also, people are like, what? You want me to breathe in the middle of the conversation? Maybe bring a notepad to your conversation. This way you can listen to them. And if you have something you need to say, you can write it down. Just write it down real quick, jot it down if you really need to. Right? But get in the practice of listening to listen, not listening to have a rebuttal. Ask questions. Being curious is fantastic. Ask questions to ensure you fully understand what is going on in their brain. We like to make assumptions. My grandmother likes to say, don't make assumptions. Making assumptions is making an ass out of you and me. ASSUME, assume, right? So let's stop making assumptions when we're having tough conversations. Ask questions. Okay, I'm going to give you a few of those in a later slide. Breathe. Breathe to calm your body so you can be aware of your own mind. What's going on for me? What did I just get triggered? Right? This is why that emotional intelligence, those journal prompts are going to come into handy. You know what your triggers are. Did I just get triggered? Right? Because our triggers can cause us to emotionally react a little more than we would other things, right? If somebody told me that I drew a bad picture, it might not hurt my feelings, right? So if my fiance, Tyler, I drew a bad picture and brought it home and I showed him, he's like, that is not cute. I'd be like, okay, that's fine, right? But if I went and I bought something and he was like, why did you spend that money? Money is a trigger for me, right? And so that causes me to freak out a little faster, but I'm aware of my triggers. So then when I notice, again, my body reacting because I know what anger feels like in my body, I'm like, oh, I just got triggered, I'm frustrated. Breathe to calm your body so you can create awareness of what's going on in your own mind. Figure out what's going on with you first. Take care of you first. Put your mask on, put your oxygen on you first. Breathe, right? And then last but not least, allow whatever emotion you have to arise without giving your power away. Now this one, some of y'all are like, what did you just say? Allow whatever emotion you have to arise without giving your power away. What we say in our house is you can be angry, you can be frustrated, you can be sad, you cannot be mean. You cannot be nasty, you cannot be vindictive. Right? So allow whatever emotion you have to arise. If you're upset, be upset, right? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to journal for a second? Do you need to scream in a pillow? Do you need to cry? It is okay to cry, my friends. Go in the bathroom, go in your car if you need to. Do it in front of people. It's a human emotion. We are human beings in the world. Crying is a natural thing. It's okay. Allow whatever emotion needs to arise, right? Without giving your power away. That's all that means when I say that. You think back to Martin Luther King Jr., right? Peaceful protest. Allow whatever emotion to arise. He was angry, right? But he didn't give his power away. He sat. He marched, right? What does that look like in your home, in your business? Does that mean you go for a walk for a second? Does that mean that you take a moment? Does that mean that you cry? That you and your business partner have a human moment and you cry, and I'm upset about this and I'm frustrated. Allow whatever emotion is there to show up. It's okay, right? Without being rude, without being mean, without being vindictive. Emotion can be there without you being mean, right? So this is really important when you're having those tough conversations. Can you allow, hey, I'm frustrated right now. I don't really understand your perspective. This is what I'm getting, right? Okay, so we're gonna get into phrases. This is the art of articulation. This is the fun part, right? We've created space. We've talked about why we need to create space, what that means, what that awareness does. We're gonna talk about articulation now. We're gonna put it into words. It's the words and tones that we can use that mean the difference between a 15-minute discussion and a 3-day cold shoulder side-eye fight, okay? So articulation is really important. It's communication. It's about the words you say and how you use them. So we're gonna use some phrases to help empower you so you can have clear and authentic conversation. And I like to say, backed by love, right? You can disagree and still love each other. Some of y'all are like, that's too much. It's too much for me, Nandi. It's okay. Like I said, take what sticks with you, leave the rest, okay? So we're gonna talk about some phrases. Phrases for clarity and authentic sharing. Okay, so these are some things you can use in your conversations. When you say X, I hear, okay? So when you say, you wanna do the PowerPoint this way, this is what I hear. I use this with a business partner of mine. She and I do masterminds together and we run a virtual book club together and we plan. And sometimes I don't quite understand what she's saying and sometimes she doesn't quite understand what I'm saying. So I'll say, hey, you know what? When you said this is what my brain, like this is the image that I got in my brain. Clarify, ask questions. It's okay to be curious. Again, notice if there's a fear of being rude, right? Often I've had so many conversations with women, they're like, I don't want to be rude. Asking curious questions is not being rude. You're asking a question, you're asking for clarity, right? What's the intention behind it? To understand, right? The point is to understand. What do you mean when you say X? What do you mean when you say that? Because this is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm getting. This is what I'm downloading. This is the image in my brain, right? Use any of those phrases. This is what I'm receiving when you say. Sometimes it's okay to not agree. I don't agree. It's okay to disagree. But disagreeing doesn't have to be filled with trauma. And you guys know what that is, right? You know, we're adults. You know when I don't agree, it's filled with trauma, right? You can just not agree. I don't agree. And that's okay. That's okay. Again, you can be angry, you can be frustrated. You don't have to be mean. I don't agree. That's it. No drama. No drama to that. And this is what my brain hears when you say X. Right, so these are just different forms of asking the same question. What we want to do is clarify here, right? The point is to be on the same page, especially like, again, when you think about business partnerships, relationships, being on a team, you're all on the same page, working for the same company, having the same objective, right? You want success, and whatever that means for your team, your relationship, whatever that means, success. You're on the same team, you want the same things, but maybe you want it in different ways. The point of this is to clarify, to get curious. We really want to get curious. Curiosity breaks down animosity. I just made that up. Curiosity breaks down animosity. It rhymes, it'll stick, right? And it feels good to be curious versus angry and frustrated. Why are they thinking that way, right? And often I think about my own parents and their own backgrounds. Why might they think that way? How were they raised? What things were they taught in their school, in their culture, in their lifetime? Can I get curious? And last but not least, I'm going to leave you guys with this one. Get grounded in gratitude. I was just talking to a client the other day, and she was telling me how after conversations with her husband, she goes back and she ruminates about all the things that she did wrong, how she could have done it better. And again, what I want to point out to you is that's just the ego, the inner critic trying to protect you, right? It's just always wanting us to do our best. And so it's pointing out what we did wrong, right? But what I want you to do is after any tough conversation, when the brain wants to replay, instead of guiding it to what went wrong, guide it to what went well. What did I do well? How did I show up? Did I create space? Did I breathe? Did I listen? Was I curious? You know, maybe I wasn't able to articulate anything because I was so stinking angry, but at least I sat in my anger and I allowed it to be. And I didn't say anything mean, right? That's a win. Ground yourself in gratitude. Having tough conversations is tricky. It's difficult. Often it's uncharted ground. Never done it before, right? So give yourself grace, ground in gratitude. What went well? So I thank you guys so much. We have Q&A, so if you have any questions or anything, I think I saw somebody in the chat. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I know that Ashley and DSW are going to pop back in as well, but I'd love to open up the conversation if you have any questions about having tough conversations, any of the concepts that we have talked about, any of that. If you're interested in connecting with me afterwards, my podcast is Believe Like a Boss, and that's all of my information there, Nandi Camille. But yes, I have a hand raised. Okay, so Mike, let's see. I'm going to turn off my screen share. And we're going to attempt to raise our hands. You guys are going to, I saw a hand raise and then it went away. But I see some names in the chat. And Mike, if you put your hand down, raise it back up for me. I don't see any hands right now, but I do see the chat. Oh, okay, it was an accident. Oh, cool. So Steve said, often shame and guilt are conflated. Yeah, really. And it's so interesting. And that's why I really recommend Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability, because she really breaks those down beautifully, shame and guilt. And it really helps to clarify it, or like it helped for me click when I'm operating out of shame, operating out of like, I am wrong. Because then I can notice it and be like, "Ooh, no, I'm not, like, we are not wrong. None of us are, like, inherently wrong, right? We can make mistakes, we can change, our brains are malleable, we can make new choices." So I just loved being able to identify those differences between guilt and shame. So thanks for noting that, Steve. Thank you, Samantha. I saw your note in the chat. Thank you so much. Do you guys have any questions about guilt or shame or having tough conversations or anything specific to team members? Please feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. If not, I'm going to hang out here and answer any questions that you guys have. Thank you. Is it House Meraki? I want to make sure I say it correctly. Thank you. Okay, we have a question. Other than breathing, what methods do you recommend to calm down from something that triggers you? So other than breathing, when I notice that something triggers me, breathing is huge. So it depends. If you're a spiritual person, I'm a spiritual person, I immediately ask for guidance and help. If like it feels too big for me, I'm like, God, angels, universe, I need your help. And then I'm just expectant. I know that it's gonna come in and help me. And I know this is Denver Startup Week, so a lot more of us are probably, I don't know, I'm not gonna make assumptions about people here. But for me, spirit is really important of asking for guidance. Now, if that's not you, if that's too woo, right? If you're more analytical, notice, what am I making this mean about me, right? When I get triggered, like I used the example of like if I went shopping or something, I brought something home and Tyler judged me about it, or just even asked a question about it. Like, is that in the budget? Like he could ask something simple like that. If it triggered me, the next question is like, what am I making this mean about me? It's probably that like I'm irresponsible with money. I'm not good with money, right? Something along those lines. So if you're more analytical, right, using both of these actually is fantastic, right? Ask for guidance from spirit universe if you're woo. If not, what am I making this mean about me? When you get triggered, what am I making this mean about me? Hopefully that helps. What is the name of the book you suggested? Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability. And I don't actually know that it's a book because I listened to it on Audible. And the way that I hear it, it sounds like it's a conference that got recorded and it was put on Audible. But it's called The Power of Vulnerability. It's an orange cover and has a bird on it. And it's by Brene Brown. Okay. Oh, thank you. Somebody told me there's also a Q&A. So I'm going to be bouncing between the two and I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I can, you guys. Okay. Other than breathing, okay, got that one. Not a question, just a tip. Cool, I'm down for tips. When having a difficult conversation that could turn towards an argument, Steelman, the other person, I think that's a typo, the other person argument instead of straw manning it. Steelman, maybe I'm just misunderstanding steelman versus straw manning it. The more often than not, you'll find that you're on the same page. It's just a breakdown in communication. Totally agree with that. And honestly, without me even understanding steel man versus straw manning it, okay, I've like Nandi, use context clues. A steel man is strong, straw man, you know, I get it. I'm starting to put it together. On the same page. I totally agree with that. Thank you, Brandon, for that. Rachel says, how do you get over the fallout of a relationship, friendship, business partner due to the lack of these productive conversations? It's frustrating to think about how differently these relationships could have been had the people just conversed this way. It can be really frustrating. It can be super frustrating, especially, you know, the new word is woke, when you feel like you're the woke one and the person's like asleep still, right? It can be very frustrating to look at them being like, if you would just like slow down, if you would just listen, right? But notice that like we're trying to control, and that doesn't serve us. That emotion of trying to control is resistance. We're resisting how the person is, right? And this is where I get a little woo, right? We're resisting how the person is. Allow that person to be how that is, because that's really causing more frustration in your own body, right? You're frustrated over how it turns out because that person didn't show up in that way. We can't control how other people show, we control how we show up. So let's celebrate how you showed up. Let's celebrate the fact that you're here and you're learning here at Denver Startup Week, you're getting information, and moving forward, you're probably going to attract people who are more emotionally intelligent, or your friend's gonna come back around and see that you've grown because now you're growing and they're gonna get curious, oh, what are you doing, right? Let's not come from a place of, and I'm not saying that you are coming from a place of control, but let's let that go. Let's let that go. You did your best, right? We do our best. We do our best until we know better. That's a beautiful Maya Angelou quote. Do your best until you know better, and then you do that, right? We are always doing our best. So let's celebrate that you're here right now, and maybe that person is going to come around, and maybe you're going to attract someone even better now that you're in here. Who knows? You're going to network maybe with a new business partner today. So I hope that helps you out, Rachel. Okay, anonymous. How do you approach tough conversations with your boss? Ooh, okay. So if you have a specific situation with that, that would be fantastic. But in the way I would approach a tough conversation with anybody, first and foremost, start to see what's in your brain. What do you want to talk about? And then what are all the buts in your head? I want to talk about getting a raise, but I can't because I've only been here X amount of time, but I can't because what are all the buts in your head? Because those are going to be present when you go and talk to them. Let's get rid of them before you go and talk to them, or let's like deal with them, right? If the brain is like, but you've only been here a year and a half. Okay, so then why are you asking for a raise? Is it because even despite the fact you've been here a year and a half, you put in X amount of work? What is the reason why you want a raise? Like, your brain is going to give you all of the buts that your boss probably is. So your brain is already going to be the fantastic testing ground for all of that. So when you're thinking about having that tough conversation with your boss, what is it you want to talk about? What are all the buts? Meet your brain with all the buts, right? What are all those things? Answer all those questions in your brain, and then you're going to feel a lot more ready and prepared to go and have that conversation because you've already met all of those buts in your brain. Or maybe you decide, oh, maybe I don't need to have this conversation. Actually, I want to do X, Y, and Z first, and then go and have that conversation. So do some more investigating in your brain. I hope that helps. Okay, Nancy. Any tips to de-escalate a conversation where someone else is getting angry or not listening well? Be still. Here's the thing. Have you ever seen a conversation or been in a conversation where someone, or like imagine a monk, right? Someone's like screaming at a monk and a monk is just like chilling. Just allowing them to yell, right? Our words, right? We can often be like, calm down, right? We think that we're de-escalating, but that can trigger somebody even more. Be still, be a space for them. If you're available for that, check in with you. If you're not available for that, then excuse yourself. You don't have to be somewhere where someone is being belligerent. You can leave. You can absolutely leave. Now, if you're choosing to be there, maybe it's a partner, a spouse, someone you want to be in the room with still and love on them, right? Sit and be there. Be the loving energy and the space that just allows them to do what they need to do, right? Allow that emotion for them to bubble over. Maybe they've been holding on to it for too long and it needs to bubble over now. Just sit there, be there, allow it. If you can be there without reacting to it, and that's fairly important. If you can be there and just be a loving energy and space, at a certain point, they're just going to get tired. Right? And they may get annoyed that you're not talking to them, but I mean, you're not escalating them. So that's one of my favorite things to do to de-escalate, just be a loving presence. I hope that helps you. Okay, tips on how to deliver critical feedback. Would you suggest the compliment sandwich or other tactics? I love that. Critical feedback. I love the compliment sandwich, giving them some really good constructive feedback, sandwiching it with this is what happened, and then, giving them some more good feedback too. I think that it really comes down to really understanding your leadership style. How do you like to lead? What's really important for me is we talk about when I talk about coaches is clean selling. It's the same thing when you talk about clean, like constructive criticism. Where is it coming from? Where's the intention? Check in with that. Just make sure it's all clean on your side. Make sure your side of the street is clean. Are you giving this feedback and they already knew their standards? That's really important too, right? Did this person know the standards that they had laid out and then they missed the mark and you're having this conversation from that piece? If that's the case, you just get to be honest, right? You may not need to sandwich it. Hey, these were the standards we agreed to. This is the action that I've seen. Here's the repercussions. It's just honest and it's clean, right? It's uncomfortable, but it's honest and it's clean. It is what it is, right? So you get to decide, like, what kind of situation is it? Have you established those things or have you not? That's really important too. Have you already had the conversation where you've established these are the standards, these are the rules we both understand, and this is an understanding between the two of us, and you've missed the mark, right? Or do you need to establish those standards because they haven't been established yet? So love the compliment sandwich, absolutely. Check in with your intention. Why are you giving this conversation? because they missed the mark, because you're upset, right? Where is this conversation, where is this information coming from? But I think as far as delivering it, that's a fantastic way to deliver it. Okay, I hope that helps, my friend. What if your boss tends to be vague when they explain things? How do you ask them to clarify without being rude or annoying? Okay, first I want you to notice that the thought in your brain is that I am going to be rude and annoying. When you're delivering information from that place, it doesn't feel good. You know, like it's like a funk. It's like your energy. It's like, I'm going to be rude and annoying, right? So first I wanted us to clean that up. You're just asking for information, asking for clarification. And what is that going to do? Allow you to do your job better, which is going to make you a better employee, which is going to make your job, your boss happy. Y'all, it's good. You're good. You're not being annoying. You're asking a clarifying question, right? So you can even say it that way. Hey, I just wanted to clarify this one thing. Right? I've done this when I've done collaborations with brands before. Hey, we're going to do this, this, and this. I will literally repeat back to them. Okay, just so I understand, I'm going to go and get this product, and then this is going to happen, and then we're going to do this on this date, and then they'll say yes, right? And then I just clean up my thinking. I'm clarifying. Me clarifying is going to allow me to do a better job, which is going to allow me to be more effective, right? Let's clean up this thinking that I'm going to be annoying. Let's clean up this thinking that of self-doubt, right? This breeds anxiety. Notice your thoughts about yourself, and that's why those journal prompts are so fantastic. So fantastic. Just to start, notice, what are your thoughts about you? Right? Before you even go into these conversations, let's bolster that confidence. You guys are doing, I love these questions, you guys. Thank you. Right? Any tips on how to communicate with someone who isn't getting it? You're being as direct as possible and being open and honest, but they're still not getting it and thinking in the complete opposite direction. Start asking questions. What I want you to do is stop trying to get your point across at that point, because as you're noticing, it's like a brick wall, just blank, bounce right off. Start asking questions. It'll open them up, right? When someone is really hard, again, think of brick wall. We think about the phases that matter. Brick wall, they're solid, right? We want to make them liquid. Asking questions is a great way to help to create space. Oh, why do you think that way? Who taught you that? Where did you first learn that idea? Okay, whatever comes up for you in the form of curiosity, and not to be sassy curious, right? Oh, who taught you that, right? Some of us can be like that. We want to be honestly curious, right? Why are they thinking that way? What do you want to know about why they're thinking that way, right? And that curiosity is going to be able to open them up. You're going to start to understand why they're thinking a certain way, which is going to allow you to ask some other questions, and that's going to loosen them up, right? They're not going to be so defensive. They're not defending themselves because they're defending against what you're trying to say. They're now being asked questions. They don't have to defend anything. They can put their guard down. They can just like ask questions because you're being curious about them. So I think asking questions is a fantastic tool when someone you feel is being very just solid, right? Let's loosen them up. Let's make them into a liquid. Love that question. Okay, Melissa, for women that perpetually apologize when they don't need to say I'm sorry, does it apply to the areas you've covered? Any book recommendations, any book suggestions for boundaries? Oh, I'm sure I do have book suggestions for boundaries. Actually, I just looked down at my phone and I have my Audible app open. I'm listening to Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and it's more autobiographical, and I think it's on the New York Times bestsellers right now. But she does a great job. She's going through a lot of different life things right now, and so she talks a little bit about setting boundaries. I also, as a coach, love the Life Coach School podcast, and I'm sure you could just search boundaries. I know she has a podcast on boundaries. And then my podcast, Believe Like a Boss. I don't know that I've done a boundaries one. I may have. I can't remember, you guys, but those are some great recommendations. As far as like saying I'm sorry, just start to notice it. You're doing a great job already. You're noticing I say I'm sorry a lot more than I need to, and I don't want to anymore. I want to stop that, right? So that self-awareness is fantastic. So the next time you go to say I'm sorry, just like notice it. And there's nothing inherently wrong with saying I'm sorry, but if you're apologizing for things you don't need to apologize for, what you're noticing is that you feel out of alignment. This doesn't feel like your authentic self, right? So that's why this is coming up for you. So just start to notice it. And the next time it like comes into your thoughts, like just catch it. I know, swallow it. It's going to be uncomfortable, right? But if you want to shift that, we're going to move through that space of discomfort of like, I'm not going to say I'm sorry. I didn't do anything wrong here. I don't always have to say I'm sorry, and that's okay. Men do it too, and I just want to say that too. Men do it too. Apologize and apologize and apologize. Why? Because it's a quick little fix. It's a band-aid fix. It makes everybody feel better real quick, right? It doesn't get us into the muck and have those tough conversations sometimes about what actually happened, right? And I'm sorry is a quick band-aid, right? If you are willing to be vulnerable, if you are willing to get uncomfortable, if you're willing to be misunderstood, then you're going to be willing to stop saying I'm sorry all of the time. I hope that helps. Okay. I think I got through all of them. Setting boundaries when needing to give critical feedback. I mean, checking, again, guys, it's all going to come right back to checking in with you, right? Creating space for you so you know what's going on with you, so you're not just popping off on people, right? So you can create space. Are you being triggered, right? Where is this anger coming from? Is there something you're not understanding, remembering you guys are on the same team? Okay. And I think, Kathleen, hopefully you got the book. Brene Brown, The Power of Vulnerability. I don't think that it's a hardback book because when I listen to it on Audible, it sounds like a conference. So Audible, The Power of Vulnerability, Brene Brown. It's fantastic. And did I miss anything else? Okay. All right, guys. And then somebody else put in the chat, another one is Daring Greatly. Okay, so she says not the power of vulnerability, but I promise you it's on my phone. I have the power of vulnerability right here.
Yes, here's one.
So power of vulnerability is the one that's on Audible. And apparently maybe it's the same thing as Daring Greatly. I said read everything by Brene Brown. She's fantastic. So definitely check out those books. I have had so much fun with you guys. If nobody has any other questions, I'm going to hand the mic over, but I've had so much fun. So if you want to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram at nandi.camille. That's exactly what it says in my little Zoom corner, nandi.camille. Like I said, I'm a life coach. I like to have fun. I like to have women have fun. I like to help women have fun, heal their hearts, heal their minds. One of my clients the other week was like, Nandi, you're like bordering on psycho over here because every time I have a problem, you're like excited because guys, it doesn't scare me. Doesn't scare me. It's all here. You are so powerful. You are so powerful. I get the joy of bringing it out. And when I ask people how they're feeling, they get to tell me the truth. That's my favorite part of my job. So if you're looking to connect, if you're looking for a coach, my name is Nandi Camille. You can find me at nandicamille.com. I've had so much fun with you guys. Thank you for joining me for having tough conversations. I'm going to hand the mic over to DSW. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day and your sessions.